This afternoon, you're listening to the Todd LaBorwit Show, Real Estate Radio and Sound Broadcast Network, WRC 1260 AM. And I'm your host, Todd LaBorwit. This segment is brought to you from Alegi Anderson, our preferred partner for wills and power of attorneys for your finance and healthcare needs. In the studio with us now is Kristin Hoover. She is the Executive Director of Widow Care. And to connect all the dots, we always talk about the importance of having a power of attorney for your finances and healthcare and to have a will in place. And with us today is Kristin Hoover from Widow Care. And tell us a little bit more about your organization. It's pretty fascinating.
Hi, Todd. Thanks so much. Widow Care is here in Montgomery County to develop support networks around widowed individuals in the county. So what we do is we meet widows and widowers who are lacking the proximity of family or support network to rely upon during and after a debilitating loss of spouse. And so we bring a community around them of volunteers and people who have a heart to care for widows and widowers, whether they've experienced widowhood themselves or they know someone who has. We bring folks with that kind of heart and passion to volunteer and help widows and widowers regain functionality and stability after loss.
Now, before the show, you were talking about the statistics, and those were just in Montgomery County of people that actually are widowers.
Right. There's over 100,000 widowed individuals just in Montgomery County. And
unless you have, if you're in the military where you can get help, there's really no place to turn to.
Right. And that's what we saw, Todd, is that if you're a military spouse, there are resources for you. If you're a senior, there's a body of resources available for you there. However, just by being a widowed person, there is not much open to you in terms of resources.
Now, Kristin, how do people know about the needs of a widow or widowers?
That's actually just the point, Todd. Most people don't know about the needs of a widow or widower. Most of the time, that's because in our culture and our communities, we're not very comfortable telling people what our needs are. And we're not very straightforward or forthcoming about that. And especially after a loss, people can be hesitant to ask. They don't want to pry. Or you have the people who say, what do you need? How can I help? And as well-intentioned as that is, so many people facing loss are not at a place emotionally to be able to process those requests, respond to them, delegate their needs to other people. So at many levels, there's a breakdown of communication. And even if you have people in your network, family, friends, a faith group that wants to be involved, many times those chains of communication just never get firmly developed for all of those reasons. So that's one of the reasons that Widow Care exists, because as a nonprofit, as a third party, we come in with trained individuals who just sit down with the widowed person and just say, talk to us about what support would look like for you. And where is it that you feel you need help? And for so many people, that's help getting through paperwork because they're just so emotionally numb that they can't even sit down and go through all the paperwork necessary. For some people, they just need someone to mow the lawn. They lost their husband and they've been so busy with everything else, they can't even attend to their lawn care. So the needs just vary so greatly. And yet those needs are not communicated normally through channels of communication or relationships that even do exist. So as Widow Care comes in, we find out what those needs are through one point of contact. So we keep the communication channels very simple for the widowed individual so they don't have to manage, all of their network and all the people who may want to help. We manage that for them, and we plug those people in to fill those needs and to meet all the areas that they bring up as, what they think they need help with. So we try to kind of manage that for them so that people who are involved or who want to be involved in caring can care in ways that are appropriate and needed.
Okay. Now, as we're talking about the needs, how does one speak up that they need the needs? Is it their friends calling you? Is it them calling you? Is it how does someone get started with Widow Care?
Sure. Well, most often it's widows and widowers reaching out to us themselves. And they find us through their bereavement groups in the county, through hospice groups that we have relationships with. They find us through possibly their church or spiritual figure in their life who knows about us and refers us to them. oftentimes it is family or friends saying, I have a neighbor or I have a friend who recently lost someone. And we often encourage them to have their friend who recently lost their spouse call us. We try not to be invasive in any way. We recognize that this is a very sensitive time in a person's life and a very delicate time. And if they want us to be involved, they invite us to be involved.
Perfect. And explain a little bit more about the people that you have. You're creating a huge impact for a need that's there, and you're helping people change their lives for the better.
Right.
What was the most touching experience that you have seen or experienced?
Well, I just recently actually was talking with Amy, who is a widow in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and she lost her husband a year ago. And it was very sudden and unexpected, and it left her and her two sons just completely shocked. And Amy's story is one of just a miraculous gathering of people from all corners of her life, from her church group to her neighbors, who just jumped in to do anything and everything to help Amy and her sons. And that was one of the rare and beautiful stories of a community coming together to initiate developing a care system for someone.
Wow. And
that was really inspiring because that is something that, Widow Care models itself, is coordinating that kind of support network under somebody to catch them during times like that. And Amy's story is unfortunately rare in that so many people don't have that experience. So many people don't have neighbors coming down, knocking on the door, and handing you $1,000 to help you with your mortgage. So many people don't have the community support. They don't have church friends bringing them meals. And so because of that, Widow Care exists to create that structure so that more people have Amy's experience. Because without a structure to exist, we don't care for people at that level automatically. That requires a degree of intentionality and sacrifice from people that is not natural sometimes and not automatic. And so Widow Care exists to create that and form those bridges so that kind of care does happen.
Oh, it's a great organization. By the way, if you're just tuning in, I have with me Kristin Hoover, Executive Director of Widow Care. I am your host, Todd LaBorwit, and you're listening to Salem Broadcast Network, WRC 1260 AM. Now, Kristin, you mentioned, for Amy, her community came together. But for others that it's affected, people don't know how to come forward.
Right.
They don't know what they should do or need to do. Do you help those people as well to get in touch with you? Say, hey, I know someone that just lost their spouse. I want to help, but I don't know what to do.
Right. Yes, we love getting those calls too. Part of what we do is resource people. So we like to provide just information about what is available in the county. So if folks are looking to help a friend or a loved one or a family member, we provide as many resources as we have and as we know about in our local area to help people take the next step. And whether that's attending a bereavement group or a support network, or whether that's looking into county funds, we can help them make that search and start that journey. We also love getting those calls because oftentimes those folks are people who want to give and they want to volunteer and they want to make a difference. And they've had a personal experience with widowhood, whether themselves being widowed or someone in close proximity to them. And so they want to help and make a difference. And those are the volunteers that we need at Widow Care.
And how can they get in touch with you?
They can go to our website, which is www.widowcare.org, and fill out a brief volunteer interest form. And we'll have a representative give them a call to get them set up. One thing that's great about our volunteer program is that we keep volunteers serving widows very local to them. So we like to keep it very localized to your city, ideally your zip code, so that it's not a big hassle for our volunteers to make caring for this widow a regular part of their lives. It can be their neighbor down the street, ideally someone within a 5 to 8 mile radius of them. And believe me, there are widows in the radius of everyone within 5 to 8 miles.
Wow.
And so we try to keep it very local, so it's a neighbor helping a neighbor. And it's also on your own time. A lot of times it's not a weekly commitment or even a monthly commitment. It's on an as-needed basis. So we really treat our volunteers' time as extremely valuable, and we don't waste it by telling them they're needed when they're not. So we try to really be sensitive to the needs of the widows and widowers and the volunteers that can meet them.
Okay, well, great. And that's widowcare.org.
Correct.
Perfect. And we talked about Montgomery County. How much area do you cover?
Right now, our predominant areas are Potomac, Rockville, Gaithersburg, Germantown, and Damascus.
Okay. And you have events coming up in November.
We do. We have a fundraising event, and it's a community kickoff event in the Gaithersburg area. It is a 5K walk and run on November 1st at 8 a.m., so bright and early, get your running shoes on, and come on out. We have registration happening right now on our webpage. So www.widowcare.org, once again, to register for the 5K on November 1st.
Perfect. Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Oh, no. Just thanks for having me, Todd. And it was terrific being here.
Well, thanks for coming on the show today.